welcome to Scrolling with Ceazor. Today is February 6th, 2026. I got lots of tweets for you today. As always, this is not financial advice, just my own bias information based on the news that's come to me. Now, I got quite a few tweets, so let's get right into it. I'll probably be able to get this done in 30 minutes today, hopefully. Okay, so the first one here we have is Alchemix. Alchemix, it says here, 24 hours until the V3 migration begins. I did do a video on V3 if you wanted to check it out and understand the changes between V1 and V2, and I highly suggest you to if you are actually a Alchemix user and have a position. Now, if you don't have a position, you can still watch it to decide whether or not you want to use this or not, and so forth. Okay, so just go to YouTube. I have got it on YouTube right here. Just search for like this Alchemix and Ceazor, Ceazor, and you'll see right there Alchemix V3 self-repaying loans. You can go and check out this V3 new model. Now, as you can see, it says 24 hours until the automatic migration begins. However, if you go to the website, it says like 2 days here. So I reached out to them and I did get a little confirmation that they are doing a little bit more security checks, double checking everything, making sure everything makes sense, all that kind of stuff. So I'm all for, double checking and doing a little extra security on it. But I figure it's worth sharing. I'm going to keep an eye on their Twitter to see if they have a full announcement of what's going on and so forth. But I figured I would share what I know and how I feel right now and what's going on and so forth, especially for me because I do have positions in Alchemix that are going to take part in this migration. Obviously not on this wallet though. Okay, moving on. Okay, so I got lots of tweets for you. First one here I've got from Bojan. Bojan is a part of the Liquidity team here, and he's kind of just sharing what Bold is doing, right? What Liquidity is doing. So let's take a look at this idea. Okay, so Liquidity yield visualized. You're looking at 150 days of data. So that's nice. I really like it when teams go back a long time to show data instead of just like the last 7 days, because last 7 days can be very volatile. Like the last 7 days is not the same as the last half a year, right? So I would definitely, I like it when they share data that is longer and kind of more useful. Now, if you don't know what Liquidity is, again, I have a video here. Just search for Liquidity V2 Ceazor right there, and you can get an understanding how this works, or you can just watch or read the docs and so forth. But let's keep going. So you're looking at 150 days of data, base yield around 5%. So if you just stick your Bold, whether you buy Bold or mint Bold, you just stick it as S Bold or Y Bold, you get about 8% passive. If you just stick it into like a stability pool, you're getting around 5%, plus you're getting some ETH, right? And then there's all those spikes that take APR like by like 20x up to like 200%, right? So as you can see this chart here, there was a spike back here in October, right, 1010, and then there's a couple little spikes along the way, and then there's been some liquidations like the past couple days and so forth. So if you are a Bold holder and you put it in the liquidity pool, you're going to get that discounted ETH. And if you're using S Bold or Y Bold, then it's going to automatically liquidate and sell that ETH for you. So it's going to get it at a discount and then immediately sell it and get you more stable coins, right? So yeah, you check it out. I think it's worth it. I like it. I'm happy in there. Okay, and it's easy and not too hard. Okay, the next one we have is from protocol FXUSD, and they're saying like, they're giving you an opportunity. There's a lot of people who are shorting right now, but then I'm sure there's a lot of people who are longing too because they feel it's the bottom. And then the shorting kind of is just people taking, like, anyhow. So I'm not gonna speculate on who's who here, but like he's saying, like if you want to do some shorting or some longing, you can use FX protocol. So FX protocol allows you to do shorting and longing. And it says the funding on FX is off. Hold your short or long and pay nothing. So if you're going to a central, like a if you're going to like a perps, you're going to probably pay funding if you're, if you're with the market, if you're in the same trend as most people, right? You're going to have to pay funding to the people who are contrary to the normal, what most people are doing. So if 80% of the people are short and you go short, you're going to pay funding to the people, to that 20% of people that go long. However, on FX protocol, it's not the case unless it's like drastic, like 99. I don't know exactly the number, but like something like 99 to 1. Then they might have some funding, but for the most part, you can short. Now you can only do 7x, or maybe you don't want to do 7x, maybe 5x or something. And on a perps you can do 20x or maybe even 50x, right? So there is that consideration as well. But at least you don't have to pay funding, right? Which is pretty good for someone who just wants to go long or short. Okay. Moving on. Here we have Star Platinum. This is kind of news today. You'll see this all over X if you kind of scroll down. Some centralized exchange in Korea. Basically, they wanted to send out 2,000 KWR to people, but some fat-fingered friggin' centralized exchange tech guy sent out 2,000 BTC to users. Okay, instead of $1.50, they sent them 2,000 BTC. That's insane, right? So anyhow, like this just goes to show like the difference between centralized exchanges and DeFi protocols. A DeFi protocol has to deploy a contract to make anything happen, and then that contract has to be immutable. So that contract maybe not, the contract's immutable, but for the most part, there are admin abilities to change things and stuff like that. Like there are, little tricks and stuff like that they can set up so that they can make changes to things, right? But for the most part, a DeFi dev is like thinking like, once I send this, there's no going back. And this is like these centralized, how am I going to explain? These centralized exchanges, they're just like some guy who's just like, oh, I got to send some money, and he sends it, right? Whereas with a DeFi protocol, they have to deploy a contract. That contract has to do the things, so they have to double check it. They have to get it, most of the time, they should get it audited. And then they have to, so they make sure it's going to do what it needs to do properly. And then, in DeFi, you have all of this like rewards, like they're trying to reward people for using this centralized exchange. But in DeFi, you want to reward people. You set up a gauge or a vesting contract or something like this, where it's all predictable and understandable and certain what's going to happen. The outcome is pretty certain. There's I don't remember ever hearing about a DeFi protocol that sent a bunch of BTC instead of USDC. Now they have been exploited, right? So there is that, right? But I don't know. Just I'll say it again. Just use DeFi. Like it's pretty safe now, I think. But there's still, I don't know. You do you, but I still think this is kind of crazy. Some guy just fat thumbs like 2,000 BTC. Now, mind you, they still control all those wallets. Maybe some user was able to, quickly get that off their centralized exchange wallet into a hard wallet. There might be a few users there. So they might have sent 2,000 BTC. I haven't read through all this, but they might have sent 2,000 BTC, but it's just like a paper send, right? It's still in their wallet. It's just like, they just kind of gave everybody this BTC, and then they can probably just unwind it quite easily. I assuming. Again, I'm not going to dig any much deeper than this because I don't use this, and I don't really care that much. But anyhow, moving on. So here we have Paper Ethereum again, showing some strange stuff that Ivan Co has shared. So basically, it's like, maybe I'm missing something here, but Balancer made 9.5 million net revenue in 2025, with approximately 5 million going to token holders. And then so someone's kind of digging through like the Balancer balance sheet, right? and kind of showing stuff what's going on. Okay, so then Paper Imperium replies to this with some insightful things. Okay, so I am not in the weeds on Balancer specifically, but one consequence of multiple entities working for the same project is you are in the dark on expenses. Off balance sheet, entities like foundations and devcons often shoulder expenses that you can't track or are mixed with non-core expenses. This makes figuring out true profit and thus PE multiples very hard. Now, to give you kind of some examples from projects that I've worked with and stuff, sometimes there are things like back ends, like calculations, subscription fees to online services, things like this that they have to pay that is not ever really part of the code that's on chain. So it's kind of hard to kind of audit that stuff a little bit, right? You can't just pop over to Seeking Alpha or Yahoo Finance and find the PE in 60 seconds. You can take a day off work or more to get the PE you can be confident in using. Complicate things. Many projects publish intentionally misleading or incompetently calculated numbers. So you really have to verify everything yourself. So, like, that's why I like protocols that are like immutable and just kind of they just run by themselves. And you never like it doesn't matter. Like if the team says the team is going to take, I don't know, 20% of the fees or 10% or whatever that percent is. The team's going to take 10% of the fees, and the rest is going to go to the token holders via these smart contracts. Then it's very easy to calculate PE. You just can use the on-chain metrics and see what the historical things have happened. However, there are lots of the older teams specifically, and then even newer teams too, that just do all the bookkeeping manually, right? And they just take their little cut and they send the rest, and you can never kind of figure out what's going on. Now, there's that. I don't know too much about Balancer in this case either. I'm not completely familiar with what's going on inside their treasuries and stuff like that. But that's why I really like protocols that have this like immutable setup for token holders, like revenue, direction, immediately, immutably, and there's no question about it, okay? So anyhow, let's move on to the next one. This is pretty interesting. So Lexnode, our favorite like crypto lawyer, he's talking about some regulation of DeFi front ends. So back in when Biden was still president, the SEC was talking about regulating front ends a lot. So because they can't really regulate smart contracts on the blockchain because they can't change them, they were like, let's just go after the front ends. So anyone who's running a front end then became a target. And that's why you see teams that don't run front ends, or they kind of obscure them, or you go to the front end and you're geo-blocked and stuff like this, okay? So I used to have a lot of debates about regulation of DeFi front ends and treasury, even proposed an insanely burdensome set of rules to regulate website operators as intermediaries. At the limit, extreme government oppression scenario, this is no longer an issue for actual DeFi, as AI can assemble a UI to interact with any smart contract on the fly. Conversely, what would make trying to regulate these things increasingly silly? Okay, so what is he saying here? He's basically saying, like, with the growth of AI, everyone can just vibe code up their own front ends now and run their own front ends. So like it's kind of pointless for them to go after front ends now, which is fantastic. So now the team these teams can feel safer in the idea that they can just quickly run a front end for people, so people don't have to vibe code up front ends. But we'll see what happens. Okay, I like this. Moving on, here we have an article by Legion. Now, I read through this, and it's I kind of feel a little bit bad about it because it's like content that doesn't really need to be content. It essentially like if you read through this whole thing, you kind of get like one major point is that like, the ICO system needs to change because, you know, can people are using connections to basically bait retail in. So retail goes into something because it's like, oh, it's backed by blah 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 blah, partnerships with blah 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 blah. Buy the token, retail comes in, they get dumped all over, right? So that's a valid point, but I don't think this required an entire article to say. But anyhow, you can check it out. There's little nuggets of little things in there, but essentially that's what they're portraying there. Okay, so here we have deepcryptodive.eth. I don't know who this person is. He came up in my feed, so check it out. It says ETH loopers are getting squeezed. So basically, if you don't know, an ETH looper is where you use kind of maybe WST ETH to borrow ETH, and then you take that ETH and you buy some more WST ETH, and then you do some ETH. Or even worse, more risky, you use ETH to borrow USDC, and then you use that USDC to buy ETH, and then you start looping up leverage, right? So, Aave updated ETH IRMA 1 hour ago. Borrowing cost is 5.6% at 96% utilization. All ST-ETH looping strategies are now running at a net loss. Now, this is a little bit scary, okay? So Aave updated the ability to the actual interest rate model. They just decided, let's move this line over a little bit, and they sent that in. Now, did Aave make an announcement about this? I don't know. Let's do a quick check to see if there's anything on Aave to this regard. And if not, I feel like that's pretty bad, like that Aave can just adjust this on the fly, right? Now, I assume Aave has a, this was all, should have been passed through the DAO, right? But as I kind of go through here, I don't I kind of scan and scan and scan. I don't see any kind of interest rate changes, but again, I'm not digging super deep. I should probably do a search and prepare this, but anyways, I just kind of wanted to share this. If you are looping on Aave, then you really want to kind of check out this and figure out what's going on and why is this the case, and whether or not you are at a loss. Because like if you're paying 5.6% to borrow ETH and you're getting 2 or 3% on your staked ETH, WST ETH, then you really shouldn't, right? So anyhow, you can double check that and see if you're in there. But I just kind of wanted to comment on that. Like they changed this this interest rate model on the fly. That's brutal. Okay, moving on. Here we have Artem Oak. He's talking about, he's retweeting an Oak research thing about the Athena switch. Now there's a bit of information in here, and then I've got some comments on this. So let's read what Arkham says. In the past few months, I've talked to a lot of people in the crypto ecosystem that used to be bullish on ENA, and that wouldn't touch the token today. There's a lot of reasons for it, but many are waiting for the fee switch to be turned on. However, I do think that this is not right. In the past few days, we worked with an explanation that our thesis on the dangers if the fee switch was turned on for the protocol. Athena itself is in a spiral that must come to an end before we can talk about the sustainable way to support the ENA price. In the meantime, the priority must remain on USDE yield that sustains the protocol and makes it attractive. So he's kind of counter to the fee switch. He thinks that the ENA token should not start pulling some of that revenue, right? He thinks, all of that revenue should continue to go to the stablecoin holders, because if you start pulling away from the stablecoin, if you start taking their yield, basically, and giving it to these ENA people, then people will unmint the stablecoin, and then the ENA token will just get less and less and less as people leave, right? So the sustainability of the stablecoin is by far the most important. And in fact, I don't even think the ENA token is necessary at this point. But they wanted to do a fundraise, so they had to sell tokens, right? And so forth, so they sold tokens. So this is another case of like a protocol that has the ability to adjust or adapt, and it's showing problems, okay? That's why I like immutability. That's why I like protocols and projects that design the system, make the system, test it, simulate it, and have the confidence in it to put it immutably on the blockchain. I love this, okay? I was a huge, not advocate, the opposite of advocate, I can't even think of the word. I was hugely against these like point systems where it's like, come and use our protocol and gain points, and then later you'll figure out what we give you, right? So we'll farm you, we'll take in $2 million worth of fees, and then we will give you all $1 million worth of tokens. And that's kind of what happens with the point systems. And then you see things like this with this Athena, where they're trying to decide, oh, should we do a fee switch or not? I really don't like it. Now, Uniswap did their fee switch a little while ago, and I can accept this because Uni is like the OG of OG tokens, right? They airdropped it to everyone. It was like pointless, and it was pointless for years and years, and then they finally turned the fee switch on. Now, I'm not a fan of the result of the fee switch, right? Because I'm not going to use Uniswap as much now because they're going to take some of my profit to give to the uni holders, right? However, I can understand that they did a fee switch, but when Athena launched, the revenue model, like VE33 was already a thing, VECRV was already a thing. Like there were tons of protocols that were doing fee generations, fee sharing revenue generations for lockers or stakers or LPers, and so they didn't. It's not like the tech wasn't already there, the design wasn't already there. There were tons of protocols already doing it. So now, if they wanted to do fee kind of generation sharing, they should have put it in at the start. But instead, they just like, oh, we'll worry about that later, right? And I don't really like this about crypto. Moving on. Here we have Daniel Lockyer. Okay, so yesterday I talked about Clawbot, right? I said, be careful, danger, 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 right? This guy here, I don't know who he is, so verify what he's saying. But he says malware found in the top downloaded skill on ClobHub, and so it begins. So yeah, so apparently the most downloaded skill on Clawbot has malware in it, and this skill is like, and ClawHub is like gives power to your whole computer. It's potentially, right? I shared that long article, how to protect yourself from the Clawbot, right? If you decide to use it, but yeah, and so it begins exactly. Let's move on. Emma Builds. I don't know who this is. Actually, I do know who this is, I think. I am following them. I think I know who this is. But anyways, I think it's Emmanuel, but I thought it was Emma, like a girl, when I first kind of questioned it. But anyhow, let's read what he says here. Okay, if we don't learn to criticize projects, you'll end up being a slave for devs. And then let's just read what Kenny here says. This is a red flag. I just hope it's not what I'm thinking. Reduce community allocation, vest tokens for months. I just hope it's not what I am thinking, because you published tokenomics before the campaign. Remember, on TGE, if you fail to deliver, the 100K persons interacting with you will heavily turn their back on you. So please do what is right. This is one thing I hate. I hate this in crypto. It happens a lot. Teams pivot because of what that's the whole problem, like with these point systems or these like come and use it, and then we'll airdrop you tokens. The teams then are in these these between these rocks and these hard places where they have to decide, screw the community and go for the VCs or the sustainability of the project or the token. However, if they announce the tokenomics, then they have to live up to what they announced. You can't go back on what you said you were going to do. You have to do it. And that's why, in my opinion, we're at a stage now in DeFi and crypto where we don't need to do these like campaigns of let's start with a bare bones product, build a community, announce an airdrop, farm all the users, and then do a TGE. Like, why can't we go back to those days where it was like, here's the protocol, here's the token, here's what it does, come and play with it. And I guess it's just purely because people are, hype driven, and easy and manipulated, right? And business, right? Anyhow, so yeah, I'll reiterate, like if you publish your tokenomics and then when it comes time to TGE, you change, that's a big no-no. Okay, Redphone here. He's got some talk about USDT, and I like what he's saying here. Okay, so I'm gonna read what he says because I like the way he writes. Had the honor of working with this team via our Delphi Labs incubator. I don't know which project he did. I really should. Oh, maybe Pleaser. Anyhow, incredible to see they're now backed by Tether. Here's why. They're using USDT as the backbone to fix global payment systems between regulated fin firms. Right now, international payments transfers don't actually move. They're passed off like a game of telephone through a chain of intermediaries. Every handoff adds a fee, delay, and a point of failure. That's tapping hundreds of billions in working capital inside correspondent banks. The T0 fixing this. So Tether's fixing this, right? The T0 network, right? Is fixing this with a new global settlement layer. The vision. A bank in Brazil and a provider in Indonesia transacting like they're across the street. They should be able to they shouldn't have to hop through 5 different banks. Instead, you can use a real-time order book and a single API. Okay, so he's got another paragraph, but I'm not going to keep reading it. But this is the whole point of crypto. Like, I can send anyone in the world. I don't care who they are, where they are. I can send them anything on any blockchain, right? However, this might be a little bit more controlled and it is Tether, so they might want to be able to freeze assets or maybe even revert transactions, right? But it doesn't need to be I send it from my bank to the head office bank, and then from that head office bank to the bank of the country, and then from that bank of the country to the next country bank, and then down through the regional, and then so like 6 hops, and all of them taking their little fees so they can pay someone to double check it, right, manually. Like, this kind of stuff is ridiculously stupid and wasteful and just dumb. It's like sending letters, instead of sending emails, they're still sending like postage, right? It's just insane, right? Okay, keep going. Okay, Jordy in Cryptoland, he's talking about a new project called Polaris. I have taken a look at this a little bit. As you can see, I'm following them. I kind of like the ideas because it is I'm not going to call it a competitor. It is along the lines of Liquidity in the sense that it's going to be completely immutable on chain and unfantastic. So he says MakerDAO and Athena surrendered. What he means by that is like they basically started backing their coins by USDC, and they just we'll just take in TVL and utility and let people mint these coins with USDC, or in Athena's case, they're even taking your assets and putting them onto centralized exchanges, right? So, like I have Athena, I use Sky ecosystem as well, but I also have, Liquidity, I have FX USDC, I have CRV USDC, or USD, right? And so forth. And then here's a new one that I might consider. Now, I will do a video on it as soon as I have a actual documentation. I don't reach out to teams until they have a white paper or documentation. And most of the time I just do the video without even reaching out to them. And then they find out that I did a video. Okay, so I will keep my eye on this project because it has the ethos that I like. And there are some interesting ideas, like you can fork this protocol and do different kinds of stablecoins. So in this case, it's showing US dollar, gold, commodity, or the Swiss franc. So maybe other, we've had some protocols that were trying to do like FX on chain, like Forex exchange on chain, like many different Forex coins, stable coins. And people were bullish them when they came out in DeFi summer, but they all kind of shrunk down to almost nothing. And now all we have is pretty much USD, and some Euro stable coins. Okay. But I would like to see some other countries as well, their fiat coins as stable coins. So anyhow, let's keep moving. I got 2 more tweets for you. Here we have Grow the Pie. DeFi is pumping with price volatility resulting in high on-chain revenue and activity. It's just an article. It's not really an article. It's just like a whole bunch of like data showing you that like what's going on, and there's things are happening. Money is moving around, and fees are being paid, and revenue is being generated, and you can kind of go through these metrics, and it's just kind of highlighting to you the power of this app. It's called Grow the Pie. It's just basically like a dashboard that kind of shows you all kinds of Ethereum L2 based type stuff. So you could check it out. I think it's interesting, and that's it. Okay, so double check it, look it up. I've got one more for you. This Conduit tweeted out that the Ronin network testnet migration is complete, the first step in its homecoming to Ethereum. So Ronin is a layer 1 blockchain. Currently, it has $13 million in TVL. It had a high of, in 2022, it had a high of, if we keep going back, a high of roughly 1.4 billion, right? And now we're down to 13 million. If you look at some of the protocols on this chain, there's not a lot. There's like 14. The majority of TVL is in its own native Katana Ronin DEX, and then the rest is kind of, a little bit on Compound, a little bit on lending, a little bit in Sabler, like that. That's $3,000. So everything below that. So almost the entire TVL is on a single DEX on this chain. However, they have decided to convert themselves to a L2. The Conduit architected the migration while operating the chain infra in collaboration with Ronin and Optimism. So perhaps it's going to be a super chain under the Optimism super chain model. So you can check out this. I think it's great. Like I love that more chains are deciding, let's just go L2s instead of sticking with L1s. I don't know if Ronin is going to actually, make it. It's kind of like a gaming type thing, right? It does say, like, their official Twitter does say, like, plug into on-chain Nintendo, press wallet. So it is, a gaming platform. I believe this, for me, I can't remember, but I believe this has something to do with the old Axie Infinity. But anyhow, I could be completely wrong on that. So anyhow, you can check it out. I think it's great. Now, of course, this is at the same time where, Vitalik has said L2s are pointless, but maybe Ronin is going to be a very specific utility, which is pretty good. If we do go to that Katana DEX, let's quickly go there and see what kind of LPs we're talking about on this DEX. So if I click on liquidity pools, it's there is AXS, Pixel, mostly USDC, ETH. Yeah, the vast majority is USDC, ETH, RON token, and then a bunch of little pools here. Yeah, sorry, I don't, and then, the RON token is the right side token of a whole bunch of other LPs. So anyhow, you can check it out. I think it's great that they're going L2. Am I going to send money in here? I don't know. You do you. I'll do me, and we'll kind of see see where the see how things go. Okay, so that's it for today. Thanks for listening, and goodbye.